Good evening, Namaskar, or Jai Hind. A warm welcome to all on today's episode of Path of Positivity, organized by Movement of Positivity and Arjun Foundation. Movement of Positivity is spearheaded by Dr. Nyaneshwar Mule of NHRC. The chairperson of Arjun Foundation Delhi is Mrs. Hemangi Sinha. Our channel partners are NIN Live. For tonight's episode, we have a very special guest, Mr. Abhay Vaidya.
Hello.
Good
Hi.
evening, sir. Namaskar.
Good evening. Namaste.
Mr. Abhay Vaidya is a gold medalist in journalism from Pune University, a master's in political science from Indiana University, Pennsylvania, under a Rotary Foundation scholarship, a journalist with 30 plus years of experience. He was the Washington correspondent of Times of India. He was then the Times of India's assistant resident editor and then resident editor of DNA. He was the first resident editor of Hindustan Times in Pune and part of the launch team in 2017, and now is with an international policy research think tank as an associate director. He reported extensively on the Rajneesh movement and is the man responsible to bring to light the multi-million dollar Lavazza scam and also the IIM 2003 paper leak. Mr. Abhay Vaidya writes commentary on social and political issues and media ethics of the country and is one of the active voices and an advocate of the free press in the country. Mr. Abhay Vaidya is also the writer of Who Killed Osho. Sir, a warm welcome to you on today's platform once again.
Thank you very much.
So my first question to you is, so what influenced you to take up journalism? So was there anyone in the family, कोई घर परिवार से था जो journalism में था?
So, Shweta, thank you very much for inviting me to this program. And I really like the emphasis that you have on positivity because that is what we need a lot. And certainly we need a lot of it in our journalism. What influenced me to take up journalism is a very interesting question because till I graduated in history from St. Xavier's College, Bombay, now Mumbai, uh, I didn't know what I should be doing. I was completely clueless, I was confused. Uh, but I used to write articles off and on in newspapers as a freelance writer. So it was a family member who suggested that maybe you should go in for journalism. And that is how I enrolled in the journalism program at University of Pune, and there was no looking back. So in those days, Indian Express was a very dominant voice as it is today,
Yes, sir.
and
Yes.
social issues were something that did interest me, and so I thought that journalism is something that I should do, and I enrolled in a 1 year course. So that's how it began.
Yes. So you have been a journalist for almost 30 plus years now. So what is the difference between a cub reporter of then and now?
Well, a lot has changed. Uh, uh, I mean, there has been a enormous sea change. One could say that we could not even have imagined what we are seeing today. So,
So,
in those days, as you know, we did not have the internet, we did not have mobile phones, we
yes.
did not even have computers. When I started journalism, it was on a typewriter, and today's generation wouldn't even have seen a typewriter. Uh,
So,
and the news that we used to transmit from one center to the other was either through teleprinters, or if we were outstation, it would be via telegrams through the postal department. And
so
that
through
is
telegrams,
the through telegrams,
through
yes,
telegrams.
and fax.
Facts.
So we would type our news on a sheet of paper and take it to the postal department because fax machines were available only with the
yes,
postal department, and then they would transmit it from there.
okay,
So that, but journalism is basically uh, very deep in what it means and what it means to society, what it means to democracy, its significance. Uh, so that is timeless.
absolutely.
It'll we'll talk more about it later, but one big difference is that the reporters in those days did a lot of legwork. We didn't, as I told you, we did not have mobile phones. So if we
Sure.
had to meet a person and do an interview, we would go in person. And doing telephonic interviews was considered as something inferior, because when you do
Yes,
an interview, you want to see the body language also, and you because that also speaks a lot, and
absolutely.
you will get to spend more time with the person. You get more information. So
Sure.
those values and methods with which we started our journalism careers are something that we do today, and we tell our young budding journalists also that these are the important things which you should think of.
तो देयर इज अ ह्यूज डिबेट, अभी एक बहुत बड़ा विवाद चल रहा है इस विषय पर कि मीडिया हाउसेस पे बहुत ज्यादा कंट्रोल पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, पॉलिटिशियंस और इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट का है. तो व्हाट इज योर ओपिनियन ऑन इट? आपकी क्या राय है इस पर?
No, so that is absolutely true. That is absolutely correct. Uh, I have written about it. Uh, Many people have written about it, and I must bring to your attention this interview and this exhaustive story which appeared in the prestigious American magazine called the New Yorker,
यस,
where the it was a cover story, uh, and the title of the story was Citizen Jane. This was about the Times of India
ओके,
conglomerate,
यस,
and there a very well-known interview that was given by the managing director of Times of India was that we uh, had an internal conference, and we asked the question that who are we here for? Are we here for readers, or are we here for advertisers? So finally, they came to the conclusion that since the revenue comes from the advertisers, we are here for the advertisers. So this is a very, very well-known story of this newspaper, and what it has, and Times of India being the market leader,
यस,
uh, everyone else followed them, and there is this kind of a control. I mean, we are dependent on revenue. We do need revenue to run our
एब्सोल्युटली,
newspaper
एब्सोल्युटली,
as a as a entity which can be self-sustaining. But
श्योर.
that does not mean that we forget our social responsibilities, and we kind of come under the influence of things like paid news and media net and all that. So these are the kinds of corruption in the media that have taken place, and we are all well aware of it. Even the common man is well aware of it.
तो इंडियन जर्नलिज्म बहुत अलग है. इट्स वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम अदर जर्नलिज्म बेसिकली बिकॉज ऑफ द लैंग्वेजेस, the geographical disparities, the economic disparities, the gaps of education. सर, what according to you, आपके हिसाब से सर एक न्यूज को इफेक्टिव इस सारे लेवल्स पे बनाने के लिए कि हर कोई जो एक अखबार खरीदे वो पढ़ के समझ पाए कि क्या उन्हें बताया जा रहा है, व्हाट इज बीइंग टोल्ड टू देम, सर हाउ इज अ न्यूज पैकेज्ड एंड गिवन टू द पीपल?
So, Shwetaji, one very interesting thing is that even after so many years in journalism, and this is true of everybody in this industry, we really don't know the formula of what will work and what will not work. We are constantly trying, experimenting, and as you know, that new publications come, many publications are not able to survive. Uh, so many publications are closed down. So what is it that will appeal to the reader and what kind of journalism we should do is a question that is uppermost in the mind of people in this industry. Uh, so, of course, what is really important? So, in newspapers, in the media industry, we first define who is our target audience, and then we try to see what would interest that target audience, and that is how we try to provide news. So, for example, you would have heard of this very popular and quite successful website called
Yes, sir.
newsminute.com.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
newsminute.com was created with the philosophy that, or with the approach that the mainstream media in India is north centric. It does not
Oh,
cover the South very well.
South
It does
India.
not
Yes, sir.
it does not give do justice to South India.
Yes.
So, News Minute today gives you the best coverage from South India,
All right.
and they have the best network of reporters in southern India. Uh, then there is another kind of journalism where people today, and today we have a one should say there's a flood of information. There's an information overload. We are being bombarded with information from all around, whether it is our mobile phones, whether it is our television, whether it is our entertainment industry. So there is information coming from all over. So what really does the reader want? So some news organizations only focus on opinion. You
Yes.
know that they are known for excellent pieces of points of view, of opinion pieces, what we call op-ed pieces, that is opposite the editorial page, uh, and a reader who is interested in social issues, national issues, international issues, um, is attracted to those kind of news publications, whether they are online or offline. A
Yes,
third
sir.
thing is there are various, some people are interested in politics. A large majority of our uh, news population, of people who read publications, etc., are interested in politics. So the Indian reader is interested a lot in politics. After politics, or probably competing with politics, comes sports. So there are publications which specialize in sports reporting.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
then, of course, anything that is happening on the crime front is it gets you high visibility. It gets you
Yes.
high TRPs and eyeballs. So that is why you see what is happening to television news. There is so much
Yes, sir.
of crime and violence shown on
Yes.
TV that we can't switch it on in front of children. But
Absolutely.
this is what appeals. So finally, as a city newspaper, you have to attend to the. You not only have to give a national package, uh, but you also have to give good local news. And if your local news is good, then that you are a differentiator, and you can build your numbers.
So nowadays everyone wants news in an instance. Pal mein khabar. Yeah, no delay in relay. With the upcoming of news-based apps, and so you switch on the TV, the news is always there in front of you. So what according to you, आपके हिसाब से ये ऐसे होने के advantages और disadvantages क्या है?
So news is all about speed, uh, but along with speed, you need accuracy.
Yes, sir.
Uh, so these are the two things that are important. कि आप अ, खबर दीजिए, लेकिन आप गलत खबर मत दीजिए. आप उस खबर को वेरीफाई कीजिए, फैक्ट चेक कीजिए, डबल चेक कीजिए और फिर दीजिए. तो जब बम्बई में बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हुए थे,
Yes,
and this typically happens with television news, कि
sir.
everybody is in place. everybody is in the race to break the news. तो breaking news देने में so
हर कोई आ
हाँ so उसमें बहुत गलत खबरें आई थी टीवी पे.
गया।
And it was only after some time that we got to know that what really had happened in Mumbai. Uh, so it has its advantages that you are able to transmit the news uh, as fast as you can. But the advantage is only if it is accurate. Now, if a reader of your news or if a viewer of your news realizes that this channel or this publication always gives false news or inaccurate news, then you lose credibility, and then nobody will take you seriously.
So, sir, these are the advantages and disadvantages, sir. So earlier we had journalists whose byline said it all. Sir, I'm not saying this because I'm sitting in front of you, but a byline by Mr. Abhay Vaidya to all his readers means that there is accurate, correct information that is being given. But sir, now with the advent of news anchors, news presenters, the raging debates, controversies, and sir, the one thing that comes to my mind is, sir, when it comes to journalism, is sir, the death of Devi, where a journalist came on television and showed that this is how the bathtub was, and this is how she was found dead. So, how different is the then from the now?
Yeah, so this is what competition does, and intense competition for eyeballs. And this is television. So everybody, particularly in television, they are trying to be as creative as that they can, and that is when this news channel try to enact the possible way in which Sri Devi died. Uh, and of course, it brought in a lot of criticism.
Yes,
Um, so um, basically, when you say then and now, uh, what the main difference is that in those days you did not have television. So I have great respect for television because of the impact and the reach it has.
yes, sir.
Uh, and I also have great respect for TV journalists who are there covering news 24 by 7, because there are, particularly when there is a hung parliament or a hung assembly, and
Absolutely.
all the drama is taking place.
Sure,
You get minute by minute report of who is going where, what is happening, who is doing what,
yes,
and this is all possible because of television.
sure.
Newspapers come only the next day after 24 hours. So when
Yes,
there were no newspapers, the people didn't know what was happening behind their back. But when you have
absolutely.
television, you can actually see what is happening.
Yes,
So
sir.
there is a positive side and there is a negative side. So a sensible news channel uh, has to be a mature news channel, has to strike that balance. So that is why we have great respect for channels like BBC, which are
Sure.
which have enormous credibility. And you would be aware that in those days, and probably even today, there are people who say that if till the news appears on BBC, we are not going to believe in it.
Absolutely.
So that is what credibility is.
So, what impact does social media like Facebook, Twitter have on journalism today?
So social media certainly has a lot of impact, uh, and when I go to media schools, uh, I have stopped asking the question that I used to ask, that I have asked anyone that I meet for the last 30 years. So, for example, if I meet you and we strike a conversation, after some time I will ask you, Shwetaji, what newspaper do you buy at home and why? Because as an industry man, I'm very curious to know that why you are buying a particular newspaper, and what is it that you find of value in that. Is it because the newspaper is selling for 1 rupee? Is it because the newspaper is giving you 30 pages? Or is it because you find the news interesting? Or do you find the sports coverage interesting? So, almost 20, 25 years ago, when I asked a question to a professor, that's what newspaper do you buy at home? And he replied, he didn't say Times of India or Indian Express, which were the two main papers in Pune. He spoke of a very small paper called Maharashtra Herald, which was the local newspaper. It no longer
Okay.
exists.
All
But
right.
and I asked him why Maharashtra Herald, and I was a reporter for Times of India that time. So not that I felt bad about it, but I wanted to know why Maharashtra Herald. So he said, in Maharashtra Herald, they give this news of no water today in big bold letters very prominently, and that news is very important for my wife.
Okay.
So, so no water today, and if your newspaper doesn't report that, then people get angry. That was the
Absolutely.
situation. And he said that is why I buy that newspaper. So, um, so uh, that is basically uh, how it is of what attracts people to various news publications. But I'll come back to the question that you had asked. So, what specifically was your question? I lost the thread.
Sir, what impact does social media have on
Right,
journalism?
right. So, I was saying that I no longer ask journalism students what newspaper you read because they don't read newspapers.
Yes, sir.
And
Unfortunately.
you may or may not be shocked to know that even journalists, because I always worked in a print newspaper, I worked uh, in the print media, and even my journalists were not reading their own newspaper. Why speak of other newspapers? So सोशल मीडिया का इम्पैक्ट ऐसा है कि पीपल आर constantly on social media. They are on their mobile phones. They are
Yes,
on digital
completely.
media.
Yes, sir.
If it is the if you are in the IT industry, you are sitting in front of the computer. You get your news from there. And
Absolutely.
particularly after COVID, when
Sir.
newspapers were prevented from distribution to
Yes,
prevent the
sir.
spread of COVID.
Yes, sir.
Um, After that, almost 30 to 40% people have not restarted their newspapers. So the
Yeah.
media industry, because they have realized that we can do without newspapers. न्यूज तो हमें कहीं से भी मिलेगी, मोबाइल फोन
Sir.
से मिलेगी, टीवी से मिलेगी, इंटरनेट से मिलेगी, तो why
Sir.
buy the newspaper? And
Absolutely.
added to that, people have lost trust in the newspaper they used to purchase.
So
Can we trust this newspaper? Like today, we also say, can we trust our doctor? You know,
yes, sir.
can we trust our hospitals? So the
Yes,
same has happened with the media. Can we trust our media? And social media is the new vehicle of journalism. So it is the digital platform. Uh, your channel is a YouTube channel,
sir.
and I'm using a mobile phone to connect with you.
Sir.
Um, so this is the one should say new normal. That
The new normal. Yes.
Yeah. So uh, the way why when something happens, when there is disturbance, internal disturbance, why do they switch off the internet as the first thing? Why does the government switch off the because that is the impact. They will keep the newspapers on because they are not worried about the reach of newspapers. But the first thing they will do is they'll switch off the internet because
Yes.
social media has become the fastest medium of transmitting information. So it is also the cheapest. So that is the kind of impact. So when in a journalism school, you are speaking and your students are looking at their mobile phones. So this professor said, "I am not going to scold you."
Okay.
So we
So this
said,
was how much it has changed now.
so that's how it has changed. Earlier, we used to confiscate the phones,
Yes,
but now
yes,
we
sir.
don't.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So COVID-19 has played a huge role in the change of, the concept of a newspaper. So what are the trends right now that are dominating the Indian media landscape?
So the biggest trend is that the impact has been so devastating on the Indian media that across the industry, there have been heavy uh, there has been heavy retrenchment. So the industry has reduced their staff. They have closed editions. They
Yes,
have
sir.
given away. They have discontinued the lease. So to save money and to kind of to cope with the losses uh,
Oh,
due to the lack of advertising revenue. So the impact has been enormous. In addition to all this, there has been a sharp drop in circulation
so,
because we lost almost a month or 2 months of circulation
yes, sir.
because of the strict lockdowns. And
So,
after that, regaining those lost numbers has not been easy. So, this is the kind of impact that the media has suffered.
so statistics show that people, especially the younger generation, have a FOMO, the fear of missing out is a lot in them. So what, according to you, will save the print media in the times of rapid digitalization that is happening today?
So, this is the question that is asked at the highest level in the industry. People who have invested hundreds of crores of rupees in the industry and in their own media organizations ask this question. And I can go back to almost 10 years when
So,
this question was being discussed uh, with the CEO of a major newspaper. And his analysis was that only the number one paper and the number two paper in the city are going to make money. The rest are the, from number three onwards. It's going to be a very big struggle because all the advertising, which is anyway being divided between television and FM radio and now internet, so the it's going to keep shrinking. And where will it go? It will go to publications which give the highest response. So if you are not the first or the second, and if you are the third, then you are not really going to succeed. Uh, so uh, this is the kind of challenge that the industry faces, and ultimately the formula is that you have to reduce your costs sharply
so,
and at the same time try to fulfill the needs of a certain number of readers by which you can achieve a kind of break even and be sustaining. So, of course, the reason why the industry is closely linked to advertising is and
so,
circulation is that if your readers have the purchasing power, then the advertisers will come to you. And if the advertisers come to you, then you will get your revenue.
so.
So this is how the industry really works. Uh, but if you want to do relevant journalism, uh, then you have to work out a system where you not only get your revenue but you don't compromise with your journalism. So there is
Absolutely.
this uh, French newspaper
So,
called La Unchained, 90-year-old La Canard Unchained, a 90-year-old
yeah,
newspaper, yeah, which is run by a trust. It is not owned by any private individual.
all right.
It has been running for 90 years, and as a policy, they don't take advertising.
Oh,
So as a policy, they only survive on circulation. But that is an extreme example. There are
yes,
other publications which ask their readers to support them financially. So if a certain number of readers give even a small amount to the newspaper, particularly those which are digital, then
yes,
they are able to sustain. They are able to sustain.
yes,
Uh, the most expensive business to run today is a newspaper business, and that is why you would have seen that many magazines have closed down. There used to be a time when we used to purchase magazines on a weekly basis, but today who
yes, sir.
purchases magazines?
No one.
Nobody purchases. I mean, it's a dying kind of stream. Uh, so that is what has happened to the industry.
So before I go to the next question, I will say something in the favor of print media. So English is not my first language. I speak a regional language, and at home everyone speaks a regional language. And when I went to college, we were told by our professors that if you want to learn English and want to communicate in it effectively for your interviews, open a newspaper and sit with a dictionary alongside. And what you will not understand in it, read it from the dictionary, note it down, and practice it in your daily speech. So, this is the impact that print media has had on my generation. Good newspaper has taught us the right, correct English, Hindi, pronunciations, everything. So, what impact does positive journalism have on society?
Yeah, so there are two things that I would like to address. So the first thing that you said about the impact or the influence that the English language newspapers had on you and what your
Yes,
teacher said. Uh, so certainly, I am of the view that the print industry is not going to die. Uh, the the best publications, the best newspapers are going to survive, and they are going to get readers, and they are going to
yes,
get advertisements. Uh, and this thing about uh, opening a newspaper and with a dictionary next to you to see the words. Of course, your professor wanted you to improve your vocabulary, but the
yes.
basic principle of a newspaper is that the reader should not require to use a dictionary. You know the
So there were words like queasy, so which
ha,
my generation then wouldn't understand easily.
yeah. So
Especially
the
editorials of people like Swaminathan Anklesarya, which were a little heavy for us to understand in those days. So we've learned English through these mediums only, effectively. So
no, no, you're right.
what so what impact does positive journalism have on society around us?
No, positive journalism is certainly extremely important. And our former president, late president APJ Abdul Kalam, he had said in a public event, not once but many times, that why is the Indian media so negative?
Yes,
And it is not true just with the Indian media; it is also true with the world media. And this French American philosopher by the name of Alain de Botton, uh, he made this very important point that modern societies are still to understand how to use mass media and mass communication for a better future. Now,
absolutely.
the entire media as uh, as a starting point or as a fundamental approach is based on negativity. So in journalism schools, when we go to journalism schools, we are taught that when a dog bites a man, it is not news, but when a man bites a dog, it is news.
Okay. Yes.
So everything that is abnormal in society is news. And that is why in a city of 50 lakh people, if there are uh, a few murders here and there, uh, that will be on your front page because
Yes.
that is something abnormal that has happened. But
Yes.
positive news has a very powerful impact. Uh, it it inspires people, it motivates people,
Certainly.
it
Certainly.
it shows people how things can be better. Uh, if you report about something in one city where in one corner something good is happening and somebody far away reads it, then they feel inspired and motivated and maybe we should also do something like this. So the story of Raregan Siddhi of Anna Hazare, of how
Yes,
he
sir.
transformed a drought-prone village in
Sir.
Raregan Siddhi was a drought-prone village in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. But Anna
Yes, sir.
Hazare, through various conservation methods and his approach to water conservation, soil conservation, etc., he transformed that village into a village of self-sufficiency. And teams of villagers, and panchayat leaders from all over the country used to visit Ralegan City to see how they can replicate that example in their own villages. And even today, after we are approaching 75 years of independence, and even today there are so many villages without water, as basic
Absolutely.
as water and electricity, although a
Yes.
lot has changed. But if so, this is the impact of positive journalism. And journalism uh, is fundamental to democracy. Uh, and as Amartya Sen said, that
Sir.
if you in democracies with a free press, you will not have large famines. So this is not about positive journalism, but this is about free press. So the
Yes.
when the press reports on such situations, then the government in power is forced to act and take remedial steps.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
So we talk of, sir, please.
yeah, so positive journalism is very important, and there are publications and portals which focus only on positive journalism, and they have a readership.
Sir. So we hear about freedom of press. You are one of the advocates of free press in the country. But sir, it's the editor of the newspaper who is its guiding light, the man who leads the path. So there must have been instances in your career where your editorial independence must have been questioned. So can you share a few instances with us?
So what you just said is true in textbooks. The
Okay.
reality is completely different, and uh, the editor today is more like a manager, and he is only managing a team. And the real editor is the person who maybe the marketing head of the publication uh, is the real editor because he decides or she decides uh, what should be published and what should not be published.
Should not be homeless.
And then, of course, there is enormous pressure um, uh, from the government on the media on what they would like to see and what they would not like to see. So,
Absolutely.
so it is all this is part of the game, and it is through such challenges that
So
we have to do our journalism. Uh, and this is, of course, my profession. So
So,
what's and all, and it is your profession. So what's and all, we like it. We would like to see a better situation. We would like to
absolutely.
see uh, a journalism where we can report on things that are, of course, as I said, you have to be factual and accurate, and you have to be balanced. You don't have to be biased. But these are all uh, words that not everybody takes seriously. Uh, but that is all fine. I mean, finally, it is for a society and for the readers to decide uh, what is important and where they should get their news from, and what should be trusted, what should not be trusted. So, uh, to say that an editor is the one who decides everything that goes in a newspaper or in a publication is a myth. Uh, Editor certainly has a prominent role in the day-to-day affairs, but he does not have absolute freedom, as it used to be at
As
one
it
point of
used
time.
to. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. So, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And for all the valuable inputs that you've shared with me and the viewers. So, we are really, really grateful to you for that. So, with this, we come to an end of today's episode of Movement of Positivity. See you next Tuesday with another power packed, thought provoking episode of Path of Positivity at 8 p.m. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.